The United States of America and China have finally reached a trade deal, which should slightly ease the situation in the trade war that Trump declared on China recently. High-ranking United States officials participated in high-level trade negotiations with China. As a result of 2 days of negotiations in Switzerland, they announced significant progress and apparently confirmed that a deal has been reached between the two countries, which could have serious consequences for the global economy. In this episode, we'll discuss the results of the 2-day negotiations between the United States and China in Switzerland and the current status of the United States-China trade deal. My name is Alexi Pecci, and today is May 11th. Let's go through everything step by step. Finance Minister Scott Bessent, in a short statement on Sunday in Geneva, Switzerland, where the China-United States negotiations occurred, described the talks as productive, saying, "I am pleased to announce that we have achieved substantial progress between the United States and China in very important trade negotiations." United States Trade Representative Jamieson Greer stated that the agreement was reached on Sunday. After President Trump imposed large-scale 45% tariffs on most Chinese goods last month, China, I remind you, responded with 25% tariffs on American goods. Well, as Greer said, quote, "President Trump declared a state of emergency in the country and imposed tariffs. And we are confident that the agreement we have concluded with our Chinese partners will help us continue working to resolve this emergency situation in the country." It's important to understand how quickly we were able to reach an agreement, which suggests that perhaps the differences were not as great as one might have thought. Interestingly, American media have already requested clarification from the Ministry of Finance regarding this deal, although Bessent said that the details will be provided on Monday morning American time. Before the negotiations, officials from the Trump administration downplayed expectations that a deal would be reached this weekend, characterizing the meetings as a good first step. Earlier this week, the same Bessent suggested that his goal was to de-escalate tensions since the United States and China have effectively reached a deadlock since Trump introduced his tariff policy. As Greer said about his Chinese colleagues, they are very tough negotiators. The group worked very hard, and the last 2 days were very constructive. Bessent said that he and Greer, who did not answer questions from the press, informed Trump, whom he described as fully informed. Trump was reportedly not present at the negotiations, but he is said to be fully aware of every detail. Trump made it clear before the negotiations in Switzerland that he was ready to lower the tariff rate for China to 80%, stating in a social media post that this depends on Scott Bessent. The White House later stated that China must also compromise. The negotiations over the weekend marked a significant step toward improving trade relations between the United States and China. Well, many experts are already saying that the current tariff rate of 145% has led to a 60% drop in imports from China to the United States. Even cutting this tariff rate in half still might not be enough to significantly change the level of trade. Economists say that 50% is the threshold that could determine the fate of returning to more or less normal business between the two countries. The combination of fewer imported goods and increased costs for imports that are still coming in has already started to push prices up for Americans. Analysts said on Thursday that a key inflation indicator will actually double to 4% by the end of this year because of Trump's trade war. Well, since ships are now arriving at the port carrying goods with a tariff of 145%, a trade deal won't lead to an immediate drop in prices. To say that Americans depend on a wide range of Chinese goods is to underestimate just how deeply these products have penetrated American life. Shoes, clothing, household appliances, microchips, children's products, toys, sports equipment, office equipment parts, and much more flow into the United States from China in simply staggering quantities. But now this import is decreasing. It is expected that imports to the United States in the second half of 2025 will decrease by at least 20% year over year. According to the National Retail Federation, the decline from China will be even sharper, with an expected decrease in imports from there by 75 to 80%. In addition, the trade war has already affected the United States economy. The country's gross domestic product, the broadest indicator of the United States economy, showed its first quarterly decline in America since the beginning of 2022. since importers rushed to bring in goods before the tariff rates took effect. But you shouldn't think that everything is fine in China. The impact of sky-high port fees is also acutely felt in China, whose exports to the United States dropped sharply in April. And so, according to economist estimates, outbound shipments from China to the United States last month amounted to $33 billion. This is a colossal decrease of 21% compared to the $42 billion recorded in April 2024. Sharp United States tariffs have also dealt a major blow to China's manufacturing sector. In April, activity at Chinese factories declined at the fastest pace in 16 months, adding urgency to Beijing's efforts to roll out new economic stimulus measures. This refers to issuing loans to Chinese governments and private businesses. There are private ones, there are conditionally private ones, always leads to catastrophic consequences. There is the story of S, as you know. This is a real estate giant that took on a huge amount of loans from the Chinese government, and then it turned out that demand for real estate dropped sharply, and the company was practically on the verge of bankruptcy. The Chinese government, of course, did not get its loans back, so whenever they try to lend, on the one hand, it leads to competitiveness. Although not entirely fair, prices for Chinese goods there are lower. On the other hand, the government doesn't always pay back these loans. News that Bessenigre would meet with his Chinese colleagues in Geneva has raised hopes for a warming of relations between the two countries. The United States and China are still the largest and second largest economies in the world respectively, together bigger than even the next 20 economies combined. These are not my inventions, these are data from the World Bank. Trump also said that he would raise the issue of the imprisoned Hong Kong media tycoon Jimmy Lai during these negotiations. Lai is such a combative former publisher whose now closed tabloid was a constant thorn in Beijing's side. He is at the center of a national security trial that could send him to prison for life. It's unclear if United States officials have discussed Lai with their Chinese counterparts in negotiations. The only thing known so far is that even without Integrir, they are boasting about having managed to strike some kind of deal with the Chinese, the details of which we will learn the very next day on Monday, May 12th. So for now, I'll just leave it at that. Share your opinions and conclusions in the comments below this episode, subscribe to the channel, click the bell, and don't forget to like if you want to support the work of this channel.